3 months ago, Peter Parker made a decision that changed his life. He became Spider Man. As the first public hero in the Ultimate Universe, Peter has so far faced common thugs, the Shocker, and worked alongside the Green Goblin to take down Bullseye. But he's never faced the perils of a double date. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to We the Fandom. It's been a while since I reviewed an Ultimate Universe comic, but those reviews weren't getting many views. This is Spider Man, however, and I wanted to keep covering it. And yet, right after I made that decision, I read this comic and was blown away by how boring and predictable this story was for a Jonathan Hickman comic. And by predictable, I mean that it reads like almost every other comic that Marvel is putting out these days. So let's get into the plot of Ultimate Spider Man 4. Now, just keep in mind that the majority of this issue is four characters sitting at a dinner table talking. That's literally most of it. So Pete and MJ meet Harry at a fancy restaurant. Introductions are given. Harry gives congratulations to MJ on her business as a marketing consultant. And then Gwen Stacy is introduced as not only Harry's wife, but as the big boss of Oscorp Industries. It's very important that we know that MJ and Gwen are powerful business women. There's a single page with a back and forth between the two couples about what it's like having kids before it goes right back to how MJ is a marketing genius. We get a brief interlude in this dinner date that show Ben and Jonah arguing over what MJ has named their news organization as she was hired as the marketing consultant. The organization is called The Paper, even though it's online. And Ben has to explain to Jonah that this isn't an ironic title, it's actually meta, because doing things ironically isn't cool anymore, so they had to call it something else. We return to the excitement of this double date where Gwen now steers the conversation, being in support of the paper for going after the truth and really sticking it to those corporate papers like the Bulletin, which is owned by Wilson Fisk. She also tells Peter how important heroes are. Oh, and did you know that Gwen is the CEO of a billion-dollar company? And then there's 2 pages of girl talk in the bathroom where, oh, did you forget that Gwen runs a company? Gwen wants to help fund the paper as a tax write off for Oscorp Industries. Now, the only pertinent information given is that Oscorp absorbed Stark/slash Stain a few months back, and that would have been during the quote unquote terrorist attack. And that was actually Tony Stark and the fledgling Avengers escaping to the future after the council had tried to kill them. But this merger explains how in the last issue, Harry Osborn, with his Green Goblin armor, which is very reminiscent of Iron Man armor, was able to take control of Peter's Pico stealth suit because it is, in fact, the same technology. Nearing the end of the story, the conversation switches to Pete and Harry arguing over keeping their families unaware of their business. Harry hits Peter with the hint of the greater powers in the world, which we know to be the Maker's Council, and finishes off his speech with great power comes great responsibility. Never thought I'd hear that coming from Green Goblin. And somewhat in opposition to this sentiment, the story ends with MJ telling Peter, "What do I need heroes for, Peter? I've got you." Which is exactly what a character says before they become the motivation for the reluctant protagonist to become a hero, i.e., she's going to be what Uncle Ben was to Peter in the mainstream universe. Hickman is going to kill her off so that Peter will start taking heroics more seriously. Now, aside from the info that Oscorp absorbed Stark, which I'm sure will become a plot point in the Ultimate Avengers, and the conversation between Harry and Peter at the end, the story in this issue didn't need to exist. Hearing the lasting impression that Ben Parker made on the Marvel Universe, iterated by Harry Osborn, and seeing him married to Gwen was a novelty, but some novelty in what is in essence a slice of life story in the genre of superhero comics doesn't cut it. Harry and Peter's conversation was important, but it should have been much more concise. A single page, much like Ben and Jonah arguing over the name of their newspaper. There was no point to the dinner date other than to show the audience that Gwen and MJ are strong, independent women. They dominated the conversation, always bringing it back to themselves and their business, while Harry Osborn, whose father was just killed, and who knows that the world is ruled by a secret council, and Peter, who just became a superhero, just sit there and listen. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the comic is called Ultimate Spider-Man, not Gwen and MJ, women getting it done. Having brief interludes that show Peter's private life are important, but nobody can defend 16 pages of characters having dinner. It's like someone else came in and wrote this story for Hickman because he was too busy. And on a similar note, Mark Cicchetto didn't illustrate this issue. We're 4 issues in, and the main artist already couldn't handle turning work in on time, as well as this drop in writing quality. Watching superhero comics at Marvel and DC slowly evolve into slice of life stories is like going to your favorite steakhouse and finding out that your favorite cut of meat has been replaced with a vegan option, which is like a grilled mushroom or something. They may use some culinary artistry to make it look like a steak. They may even use the same steak sauce, but there's no meat in there. You're not getting what you expect to get when you go to a steakhouse, and it's the same for the superhero genre in comics right now. There is an audience for slice of life stories. There might even be an audience for slice of life involving these characters, but the main continuity, or even a secondary but prominent continuity like the Ultimate Universe, should be telling superhero stories. If they had done 135 issues of Ultimate Spider Man and then done an annual that was like this, it would have been fine. This is issue 4. Imagine reading the original Spider Man run, issue 4, and the entire issue is Peter at the lunch table at school sitting across from Liz Allen and Flash Thompson as they talk about a test they just took or a date that Liz and Flash went on. And then there's 2 pages devoted to Flash and his teammates talking about the football championship coming up. That would be ridiculous. Even when the story involved Peter's school or Aunt May or the Daily Bugle, the focus was on Peter because he is Spider Man. If you're going to show the audience important character development, it's going to involve a superhero fighting a supervillain because this is a superhero story, not characters eating a meal. We don't have to be in denial that there's an audience for slice of life, while also reminding ourselves that this is an action-oriented genre within the medium of comics. Marvel used to do comics for women and kind of slice of life stories like this, like Millie the Model, but those stories weren't involved in the main continuity of Marvel. They weren't involved in the superhero continuity. I mean, Patsy Walker is technically in the Marvel continuity, but I don't think her old stories are really considered canon within the 616 universe. Again, Marvel can publish slice of life stories, but they shouldn't be hijacking comics relegated for the superhero genre to tell slice of life stories. Just make a separate line for that. That's all you have to do. I'm going to stick with Spider Man because so far, even as it is in this issue, it's still better than the Amazing Spider Man in the main continuity. And 2, it's Jonathan Hickman. I've been a longtime fan of Hickman. I've read everything he's ever written, including all his stuff outside of Marvel. His track record is pretty good, except for, in my opinion, his run on X-Men. I enjoyed House and Powers of X, but the actual X-Men comics that came afterwards were garbage, which in part wasn't his fault. He had a team of people who I think don't really fit with the type of writing that Hickman does. But I'd love to know what you guys think, because I know a lot of people were excited for Ultimate Spider-Man because it was going to be different than the Amazing Spider-Man in the 616 continuity, and it was written by Hickman. So a lot of people had their hopes up and thought that this was going to be something good, kind of a return to classic Spider-Man storytelling, but in a modern setting, which is not exactly what the main continuity is doing. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on issue 4 and where you think the entire Ultimate Spider-Man run is heading towards. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you enjoyed my review of Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 4, and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on my review for the next issue of Ultimate Spider-Man. Thanks for watching.